1, 2, 3. All right. We good? We good?
We good.
You rolling? Welcome to the Outlaw Radio Show. Clean open. Clean open. Welcome
Look
to the
at
Outlaw
that.
Radio Show. I know. Absolutely. My name is Zach Adams. I pastor a church located just outside of Athens, Georgia. The name of the church is Calvary 316. If you're local, check us out in person. Our Sunday service is at 10:30. If you're not local but looking for a good church you can watch online, we live stream our service on YouTube, Calvary316.live, as well as Facebook.com/Calvary316. So we'd love for you to be our guest online. If you can't be with us in person, I am joined, as always, by the man that needs no introduction this time of year. Pope Creighton gets referred to as Scrooge McDuck, the hater of Christmas.
I don't hate Christmas because of Christ. I hate Christmas because of commercialism. I feel very strongly about this. Good evening.
Yeah, you do feel very strongly. There is an update to an ongoing thing. You know, there has been, we did a deal a few months ago where it was like first 3 emails into popecreighton@gmail.com we would mail a t-shirt to. And a good friend of ours through the show, really, his name's Walter from South Africa, pinged us. And so we mailed him a shirt. And so this has been a long, ongoing thing of like, when will the shirt arrive to South Africa? So there's been an update. We got an update. You want to take it?
Yeah. Because we emailed it and we were like, oh, this is going to take forever. Because
we didn't email it. It'd be very hard to get a t-shirt through email.
We mailed it. And we were like, oh, this is going to take forever because, it's going halfway across the world.
Yeah, UPS was going to be $160.
Right.
United States Postal Service was like $16, but it was like a spit in a prayer.
So what we did was we mailed it, and then we waited like 2 weeks, and then I emailed Walter, and I was like, hey, did you get your shirt yet or whatever? And he was like, no, it probably won't be for a while now. The Postal Service is kind of melting down in South Africa. And so what was it, maybe a month ago, he gave us an update that was like, yeah, the Postal Service is completely shut down. Everything inside is just locked inside. Hopefully they will open it up for us to get our packages at some point or be able to buy them or something. And I got a Facebook message today that he was able to get his stuff. He's got his Outlaw Radio shirt. He sent us a message and to post some pictures of it on our Facebook page to go check it out.
And then the video that he took,
Yes.
I put on our page. So if you go to facebook.com/The Radio Outlaw, again, like, subscribe, but very cool that one of our t-shirts got to South Africa after months.
That's still crazy to me.
And what I loved about the video is he says, God even works with getting t-shirts places.
Yes.
And I thought that was a neat thing. I will say, just on behalf of Walter and just a little bit of the exchanges that we've had, man, I just kind of pray for the brothers and sisters there in South Africa. In America, we're largely kind of insulated from certain things that go on in other parts of the world. You don't hear about South Africa much in the news. There are other things going on. We hear a lot about Ukraine, a lot about Israel, a lot about the southern border. But you don't get a lot of updates on South Africa. But the country's in meltdown. The government's very corrupt. Just a real difficult, probably a very difficult environment to be a Christian, but just a difficult environment to be a human. And so we just, thoughts and prayers to Walter and his family. And I'm glad that the t-shirt at least gave a little bit of a connecting point from us to him, which is neat. So we're also joined in studio by Spice Daddy.
Howdy.
You've gotten yourself a clean cut. You're high and tight.
Yeah, I sleep hot, so I wake up sweating. I was
Thanks
like,
for
I'll
that.
just shave my head off.
Thanks for that detail.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a sweaty guy, so.
You sleep hot. Now you're actually going to be interesting. You're going to be on another podcast. We're not giving away free publicity here.
Yeah.
But you're going to be on another podcast this weekend. You've been invited.
Yeah, I met this guy at a thing I went to. We just got to talking, and he's a fellow believer, and he's like, yeah, I do a podcast. I was like, oh, that's cool. I do one too. And he's like, yeah, I got a few more subscribers are here, but like, it's cool.
We have way more viewers than subscribers, I'm convinced.
Yeah, I think so. But it seemed pretty cool. His format he does is just Ashley Keaton. So he spells his name A-S.
Now, we don't need to give away all that information.
HLEE.
We ain't getting paid for this.
No, we cross post.
Well,
we ain't
I
getting
think-
all that.
I think
Plugs
it might
here.
be a good one for Creighton to watch because he wants to talk about Christmas. So
That's true.
yeah,
That's true.
So
I think
I'm really looking forward to that.
you need to walk out if you're not introduced as Justin Holcomb, a.k.a. Spice Daddy from the Outlaw
Oh, that's
Radio
gonna
Show.
happen.
Yeah.
Especially because my dad a couple weeks ago brought home this early present for me. It was a advent calendar of hot sauce. So every day
That's
I open it up, it's
perfect.
got little things of hot sauce in it, and this.
We should be sponsored by something like that
Oh
for
man,
sure. Yeah.
Tapatio or Sriracha or Valentina. If
Valentino.
Valentina sponsored me, oh man, I would drink the entire bottle right here on air.
Let's make that happen. Also
We have to
joined
stop making bets on air.
in the studio, the fourth chair, Isaac's second appearance. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. Glad to be here.
This is the second time you're in flannel. I mean, is this just your branding?
It's kind of a theme.
It's a theme.
I also like flannels, and when you called me Dexter last time, I was flattered.
Yes, you're Oregon Dexter. You're not Miami Dexter. You're definitely Oregon Dexter.
I usually wear this going to bed.
Do you?
Yeah. I
Flannel
do.
flannel PJs?
I also get sweaty, so you're not alone. Actually, last night.
That's because you go to sleep in flannel.
That's right.
I don't need your judgment.
Yeah, you're hot because you're wearing a hoodie when you go to sleep.
It really helps when you shave your head.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not gonna do that.
Not, no, that would
on
be
the
funny.
agenda.
That would be funny.
Yeah.
You'd look like a lighter Justin if you shaved your
See,
head.
every time it happens, I don't know if you ever seen Napoleon Dynamite, and like Pedro's like, I was hot, and so he shaved his head. Yeah.
That's right.
So that's what I think every time I do it.
Also joined in studio, we have an audience member, Robert, good friend of ours, is here. He's free to interject, ask questions, however he sees fit. The way that the show works, in case you're new, is that Creighton introduces a topic, or a Bible passage, Bible story, something. Creighton drops it. He feeds a lot of questions from you guys. If you have any questions you want addressed on the Outlaw Radio Show, topics you want turned into a conversation, you can submit those at popecreighton@gmail.com. Again, popecreighton@gmail.com. You can also interact in real time. We are live streaming the recording of a podcast that gets released on Thursday. Apple, Google, Spotify, really any platform that you get your podcasting from. Just search Outlaw Radio, search Zach Adams, you'll find it. But we're live streaming it, so it's great because we can interact with anybody that's watching. Creighton, please tell the audience the best way that they can reach out and interact with us.
I am watching the comment section on both Facebook and YouTube.
Which outlawradio.live is the YouTube channel. Again, facebook.com/The Radio Outlaws is the Facebook page. So those comment sections.
Yes. So if you're watching live, you can put a comment in there. For instance, Miss Ann says hello. Everyone say hello to Miss Ann.
Thank
Hello,
you.
Hi, Miss
Miss
Ann.
Ann.
Yes, absolutely.
We also have another comment on YouTube from, and I think that I'm going to say this right. It's Flix's F's. It says, "Is Justin on today?" I don't know if you know who Flix's F's
Oh, he is
is,
Oh, he's
but he wants to know if you're on. So yes,
I'm always on.
Yeah, for sure. we should also just to get it kind of out of the way, but a special happy birthday to a Mr. Vaughn, Creighton's father. It's his
Yes,
birthday.
it is my dad's
Stan Vaughn.
birthday.
So we want to wish Stan a happy birthday. I am wearing a beautiful McRib
It's
shirt, as you
something.
can tell. Over the last couple of episodes, I've discussed my obsession and love affair with the McRib, explained why that is and how this is developed, and so after last week's episode, a package arrived at my house that one of our avid listeners, watchers, mailed me this beautiful McRib T-shirt. I don't know where you buy a McRib T-shirt.
Hell.
But hell, not at all. Come on, look at that,
That
baby.
happens. That happens.
Look
after you
at
eat
that.
the McRib.
Just a McRib. It's beautiful. And so I knowing that I was going to be wearing this beautiful T-shirt, we've been trying to do like individual, different types of social media posts, just different versions of our logo. So
something to catch the eye.
catch the eye. So I did a good McRib logo of the Outlaw Radio Show. We posted that out. And then I kind of like, just to try to tease the audience, you know, is there a way for Zach to turn his love and obsession of the McRib into something spiritual? So the whole episode is not going to be about this, but it's like a challenge that I've willingly accepted about the McRib.
I'm pretty good at that. False idols.
False idols, get out of town.
Yes, I was thinking that.
So real quick, I just want to give a
Unclean
little
meat.
bit. I want to drop a little knowledge on the McRib, just a little bit, and then I'm going to very quickly make a spiritual application, and then we'll get to whatever topic Creighton wants to talk about. This is all from the interwebs, but the McRib, is barbecue flavored pork sandwich, periodically sold by McDonald's. First introduced to the menu, we got people laughing. What are we laughing about over here?
A certain comment that just came
There's a
on
comment that
YouTube.
dropped. What comment just dropped?
On YouTube?
You're looking at it.
On the YouTube, I'm not going to name names.
A
but they
very
say
beautiful woman.
It even looks nasty on the T-shirt.
Oh no, no. So it was put on the McDonald's menu in 1981, following market testing. Interestingly, it was removed from the menu in '85 because of poor sales.
It lasted 4 years.
Yeah, it was reintroduced in '89, stayed on the menu till 2005 in many countries.
Yeah, the ones without
2006,
clean water.
it moves in regards to like the marketplace. What I found interesting, so bear with me. The McRib consists, quote, of restructured boneless pork patty shaped like miniature rack of ribs,
That sounds healthy.
barbecue sauce, onions, and pickles served on a roll. Now this is what I didn't know. Meat restructuring. Have you ever heard that phrase?
Nope.
So you should, Isaac. Meat
I've restructured some meat before.
meat restructuring was developed by the U.S. Army to deliver low-cost meat to troops in the field. The process was redefined by an Army lab scientist, leading to the creation of the McRib patty. It's primarily composed of ground pork shoulder. Quote, government doesn't patent their intellectual property, so anyone can use it. They presented material at technical meetings. The military allowed McDonald's to use the process to develop the McRib. So it was the government, it was the Army. In an attempt to give pork, quote, the same stature as beef in the institutional market, the National Pork Producers Council funded this to show this new technique. Using this roadmap, McDonald's developed a, quote, patty made of pork from small flakes of meat taken from the shoulders of a pig.
You are not selling this well.
The McRib Jr. was blah, 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 blah.
There was a McRib Jr.
Apparently so in 2000. So
Is this supposed to be like the M&Ms of meat, where it can like survive in like the desert heat without degrading, kind of thing?
Melts in your mouth, not in your pocket.
Right.
So it is a mystery meat developed by the United States Army that McDonald's hijacked, slopped it with barbecue sauce, and it is delicious. So how am I going to turn this into anything spiritual? There's a passage of scripture that is very applicable. In fact, it's the words of Jesus. Pulling out the big book here. Want to take a guess?
Yeah, is this the one where
I'm just gonna
Jesus
go for
talks
it.
to Peter about making unclean meat clean,
So it's even better.
spreading it out on the?
That's a good one. The
So
sheet.
your justification for the McRib from the words of Jesus.
This is going to be heresy, isn't it?
Matthew chapter 15, verse 11. Jesus said,
This is what he's been preparing for all week, not his sermon, by the way.
it's not what goes into the mouth that defiles a man, but what comes out of the mouth that defiles a man. Biblical justification for the McRib.
Wait. So is this
There
more,
it is, right there.
Is this
Not
more,
what goes into the mouth that defiles a man, even if it's a McRib.
Does that
Goes
include
bad only when you throw it up.
But you're not going to throw it up. Promise you. It's
Debatable.
delicious.
Serious question.
Delicious.
When we sin, grace abounds. Shall we sin so that grace abounds
You're
more.
like mumbling that out.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's not what goes into the mouth that defiles a man. So the McRib, it's pork. It's versions of pork. It's parts of pork that gets compressed, mashed,
Restructured.
restructured is the right word, and gets barbecue sauce, some pickles, some onions, and it's glorious going down. Doesn't defile the man. From the words of Jesus, Jesus endorses the McRib. That's what I'm saying. I mean, that's kind of where I'm going with it.
Pretty slippery
Pretty sure he was
application.
Pretty sure he's Jewish and never ate pork.
But he's in heaven
Nailed
now.
I did.
It's not what goes into the mouth that defiles a man. That's all I'm saying. I did run across this. This will be fun for Creighton just about Christmas. I saw this on Twitter, which means it's true. No, there's no fact check to this. I'm just saying that this is true because if it's on the internet, it is.
So true.
Apparently in 323 AD, at the Council of Nicaea.
You're going to talk about my boy.
That's right. The Council of Nicaea, Saint Nicholas, the inspiration for Santa Claus, smacked the heretic Arius in the face to interrupt a speech that he was giving denying the divinity of Christ.
Punched him right in the face.
Saint Nicholas, in the middle of this council, the guy's denying the divinity of Jesus, and he walks over and punches him in the face. Santa Claus. Now, the same tweet decided to kind of play on a famous song, and I like this version. I'll read it for you. He's making a list. He's checking it twice. He's gonna find out if you denied the divinity of Christ. Santa Claus is coming to town. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you're a heretic, and he'll punch you in the face. I like it. Good old Saint Nick. By the way, there are AI-generated photos of what that would look like. Santa Claus punching the heretic out in the face at the Council of Nicaea. Again, AI is good for something.
Wish I could dress up like Santa and punch a heretic in the face.
You just need to get a job at Cabela's.
Oh, that's
They
a
do
good
that
idea.
every Christmas.
Punch heretics in the face?
No, I haven't seen that part.
Oh, okay.
Literally just got a text message from a listener at McDonald's
Oh my good golly.
getting a McRib. I'm just saying. It's sad. I've probably converted more people to the McRib than Jesus, but at the same time, at least
McRib is the gateway to Jesus.
it is the gate. Well, that's what I was trying to establish. Thank you, Isaac.
You're welcome.
It's okay. So in the same way that McDonald's is able to take all these thrown away parts and to restructure it, it's really like regeneration. How Jesus takes our broken pieces that would just preach, right? That would just be thrown away, that would be discarded, that no one would want. And he takes these broken things and he brings them back together. He crushes them back. Sometimes it's through the pressure of tribulation and trial. And
Extruded.
and just like the rib taken from Adam, he takes man. And he forms us back into a delicious patty.
All I'm hearing right now is if you smother barbecue sauce on it, it's probably going to come out good.
I mean that's just a lesser application, I would say. So, yeah. If McDonald's can redeem those scraps of pork and make it something delicious, Jesus can take your broken life and make it delicious.
Get it up right now.
And that is
You're tearing up. There we go.
That's
That was the
inspiration.
episode.
That's
I mean, we're gonna
inspiration.
tap out at 20 minutes. Creighton, what do you got?
All right. Boy, has this gone down a weird road.
That took a lot longer than I thought it was going to.
My goodness. You know what?
I felt like I was preaching.
You know what?
I felt.
If you don't work
Hey,
this
the
in-
audience member just made the comment. Someone needed to hear that.
if you
tonight.
don't work this into your sermon on Sunday, I don't know what I'm going to do.
he's gonna
No.
turn your mic off.
No, that's interesting. That's interesting. Challenge potentially accepted.
Only if you wear the shirt, though. I mean, that's
Yeah, no, this really is. So I was gonna wash it because it's an XL, so it's a little big. I was gonna wash it to shrink it, and my wife forbid me to. She goes, first, it's really really red, and seems to be a pretty cheap material.
Well,
so
I
it's
see
gonna
one really big problem with it.
it's gonna stain everything, and more than likely that McRib will disappear from the shirt.
I see
So it's a one timer.
I see one big problem with it yet. if it's gonna have stains, it has to have the barbecue sauce stains from the McRib on it.
I should wear this when I eat the McRib.
Only when you.
You absolutely should do that.
And don't.
I should go to McDonald's with this T-shirt on.
Yes.
Go inside and be like, "Let's do this." There was a few listeners
Oh my god.
that were advocating for me to actually come tonight with McRibs
Why don't we take a field trip
and make you
Outlaw-
guys eat a McRib. At least
Outlaw
try it
on-site-
on camera.
Outlaw on site at a McDonald's while you're eating.
Absolutely
McRibs.
not. Also, I'm not going to read all of these because she's going in hard. But Isaac's wife is just giving the McRib the business in the comments. She's giving it the business right now. My
Nicely done,
goodness, she's giving it.
Okay, 100%. She's never eaten it. Everyone that's got a strong opinion has never tried it. I was that person. Alexis, I was you one day, before I came to
Before he transitioned.
that great revelation. I too was a skeptic
I just want you to know
until you try it.
that
I'm telling you.
people
gotta
who
try
are
it.
really into cocaine say the exact same thing when they want you to do cocaine with them.
And guess what? They find out that
Cocaine's
cocaine.
awesome.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying
Hey.
about the McRib.
That my 1,000-pound life show would disagree is the best comment so far.
Haters gonna hate. You know what I'll do? I'll just shake it off.
I really like,
Shake it
since we're
off.
doing this,
Shake
I
it
really
off.
liked the shirts as nasty and cheap as the actual sandwich.
Listen, hey,
Giving it the business.
you know, you laugh, but this is probably the first episode she's watched.
Absolutely.
So
I think that's because of Isaac, not because of
mission
the McRib.
accomplished. Mission accomplished.
Oh my good golly.
That and Oregon Dexter over there in his flannel that he's gonna go to sleep and sweat in.
What can I say?
Anyway, Creighton, we got a topic, or do I need to wax for another 30 minutes?
No, please
on the
don't. Yes,
McRib?
we have a topic. And it actually comes from our resident audience member. We were having a conversation on text a week or two ago, and his question is thus.
Thus, you dropped an Okie
Oh, yes.
James.
Hey, it's Christmas.
Thou shalt.
Thee
If we
before
know-
thine, except after the thou.
Good
If we
one.
know
Thanks, Spice Daddy.
that God is both infinite and eternal, does that mean that would it then be incumbent to believe that there are other creations outside of us, either prior to making us or after, given that he's eternal, there would be more? I feel like the Bible says that there isn't. But at the same time, I can't point to anything that's like, yeah, this is the only creation. I can't think of anything that this is the only creation.
So there is and this is going to be kind of a short topic, so I hope you guys got some other stuff.
I got lots of stuff.
Okay, so here's the deal.
that's interesting. I was expecting it to be a longer topic.
No, so there's a
For me, when I was thinking about it afterwards, I was like, that's kind of like.
right. So even the guy that's asking the question is like, this is a dumb question. So
You're just throwing me under the bus today, man.
So-
My goodness.
that's where you find the McRibs.
I can believe it.
Under
I
the
can
bus.
believe it. Under the bus.
Yeah.
Or in the garbage can.
No, that's just unnecessary.
The bus actually ran over the garbage cans. That's
just
why
totally,
they're under
totally
it.
unnecessary. Might be where you found this T-shirt, but not the McRib. So there's a flaw to the question, a serious flaw to the question, that really, to an extent, makes the question irrelevant. And because the question itself assumes that God experiences time in the same way that we do. Like, that's the essence of the question. Like, we're saying, well, if God's infinite, then at some point in the past, this has all happened again, or happened before, or had a different thing. But you're assuming that the way that God so when you talk about, and you even said it in your question, you said you combine infinite and eternal. Mm-hmm. Those are two different things. You and I are eternal. We have a beginning, but we don't have an end. So on a line, there's a starting point, and we go forever on a line, a ray. Back to basic geometry. Mm-hmm. So we're in a line with an arrow going that direction, and we'll go forever that way. And that's since we're eternal. We were created, but we will go forever. So we're eternal. Infinite is a different concept, because there is no starting point to what's infinite. Infinite is one line with arrows going both directions. So it is infinitely going into the past as it is going into the future, which means that there's no way to get to a moment. There's not a moment with God. Like, our basic understanding of like time and like the moment in time is completely predicated upon there being a beginning. It goes to like it's like one of the basic arguments about the creation of the universe is that there had to be a beginning for us to be in today. Like, if matter was infinite, if matter has always been, then it would be impossible to filter through an infinite series of moments in time to get to today, because it's going in both directions hard. And there's the analogy, like, how do you jump out of a bottomless hole? You can't. You have to reach the bottom to go up, to change the trajectory. How could you get to a single page in a book that is infinitely going in both directions? You could never filter through an infinite series of pages to get to a single page. It's impossible, which gives the idea of like, there is a beginning. God created. And the only way that there can be a beginning, and this gets real deep and philosophical, is for there to be the existence of what philosophically is referred to as an uncaused cause, which the Bible affirms. The Bible provides no explanations for the origins of God or the beginning of God. In the beginning, God, just those words. In the beginning, God is the assumption that when there was the beginning, God was already there. It doesn't tell us where he came from, how it began, where God. It doesn't say anything other than it affirms in the beginning there was an uncaused cause that started everything into motion. And that's what we read throughout the rest of the creation account. This uncaused cause, this infinite being that's always been and always will be, starts our time-space continuum. So when you're asking the question, well, like, could God, because he's infinite, at some other time done something else? Well, that completely breaks down, because it's assuming that God operates in a time-space continuum, because he doesn't. All we know of time and space is that we exist in it now. And we can track that in a biblical narrative back to a beginning. And within that beginning, there are no other alternates. So again, and I know this is kind of like a mind meld, but it's like God doesn't exist and doesn't function within the same type of parameters that we see. Like, to think that, well, God's always been, wasn't he bored at some point? That's a complete mischaracterization of like the experience of God.
So what you're saying is you don't believe in aliens.
I don't believe in aliens. I do believe in extraterrestrial beings, and I would call them angels, fallen angels. I mean, that's kind of the great misconception of that particular topic, is that the Bible does affirm that there's God, there's human beings, there's the natural world that we see, but there's a whole nother realm that exists around us that we can't see, but that can interact with us and can come back and forth. I remember there's a miracle, Jesus healing the blind man. I think it's at the pool of Siloam. I don't remember the exact passage.
Commonly known as the regressive miracle.
The regressive miracle, which I think is actually a progressive miracle, because I think what happens, so the guy, Jesus puts mud, says, go wash it out. And he opens his eyes and he freaks out, because he's like, I see men like giants. Right? And so he has to wash them out even more, and then he sees clearly. And people say, oh, well, it was still fuzzy. He still couldn't see right. You know,
God didn't heal him all the way. God
didn't heal him all the way. So like, sometimes God has to use natural methods just a little bit at a time. I think Jesus literally healed him fully. Like, Jesus gave him full sight. And what the guy saw was interdimensional. Like, the guy could see more than just what we can see. He could see like through dimensionality, like other spectrums. And he freaked out. I think he could see into the spiritual realm. He's seeing angels and demons walking around. He's freaking out about it, and it's like, yeah, I got to get back to like what a normal person is supposed to see.
No more infrared.
No more of that, right? In infrared, there's a whole science behind that of like I think we have 3 cones in our eyes that allow us to see what we see, but there are other animals that have additional cones that are able to see things that we can't see. I think there's like a shrimp of some kind that has like
It's
8.
the mantis shrimp.
Mantis that has like 8 spectrums. There's like some weird science going on, like with color blindness, of actually implanting cones to give.
Well, that's what whatever that chip Elon Musk is creating. He's saying the first applications of it are going to be for people who can't use their limbs or who are blind, and it'll open up their ability to see not just the way that we do, but in other spectrums as well.
Which again gets kind of that becomes a very crazy thing, because I think, and Paul says this, like, hey, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. Like, there's a whole like spirits, principalities, darkness, rulers of the darkness of the same. Like, he lists off a whole bunch of other things that are in operation around us. Like, we are limited in our understanding of what exists around us because of what we can see. And so my point is, I don't necessarily believe in aliens in the cultural way that we present aliens, but I do believe that there's a lot of things around us that have the ability to come into our dimension and out of our dimension. And when you actually start researching some of the things that like the Air Force has seen, you know, some of the things that we've caught on Doppler, on radar, and things like they operate like contrary to our physical understanding of the world, and they come in and they come out in very weird ways. And I think a lot of that can be attributed to, again, the additional dimensions that the spiritual realm exists in. My point to the question, I want to make sure we wrap up the question, and then I'll get to Justin, is, you know, like, could God have done all of this before, multiple times? Well, at that point, you'd say he's done it infinitely an amount of times, because we're going backwards in time forever. God exists outside of our understanding of how that works. And there's no evidence of that. Time begins in our context when God said, let there be light. So, does that, I mean, Robert, I know that was your question. Yeah, okay, so.
I think that's what I was getting at. That kind of goes back to the crux of the problem with questions like that, is our understanding of how to describe the character of God, his essence is so far beyond our ability to comprehend that we have to put him in what we understand. And so we only understand a beginning. We can understand a no end, but we can't understand like someone not having a beginning.
Right.
It just doesn't compute.
Which is why so much of what we do to describe God is using anthropomorphic terminology,
Right.
where we're attributing human or physical attributes to what is inherently not.
Right.
Like I rest under the shadow of his wings. God didn't have wings.
Right.
But like, we understand what's being articulated using the
Right.
phraseology.
And I think that's why Jesus used a lot of parables and stuff to help
For sure.
people to understand the concepts that God is trying to impart on us. But I think like people like C.S. Lewis he's done a really good job of exploring that concept with like the Chronicles of Narnia, where it's not you got completely different worlds that are happening at the same time, but on a different time scale and stuff like that. And as far as like other creatures go, he kind of goes into that in his space trilogy, which is one of my probably my favorite series of all books ever is this C.S. Lewis space
really
trilogy.
good.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to what you were teaching in your sermon this last Sunday. In one of the books, he goes into it, and it's like the basic premise of it. And I don't want to give away all of it because you should go read it. Is that like Venus had a world in it, and it had different creatures and stuff like that, and this man from Earth goes there, and then he goes to Mars next in the next book, and then the last book is like I think it's like a moon of Jupiter or something. It's somewhere along those lines, and it had this world on it, and the first two books he explores like these varying creatures that just are not human like, but in the third one, it's they're anthropological, like just like us, but they're a little bit different, but they have the same image as
They're
as
essentially
us.
humans.
And so the character in the book, he asks like, why did these other creatures not look like this? And the basic premise of it was like, we were the third one to be created, and at the moment that the creator chose to take our image, like become in our image, or it locked in that it wouldn't be right to be in any other thing. So it kind of goes back to what you said, like God choosing to come down and be like us is kind of mind blowing.
Yeah, right, for sure. Isaac, you were gonna jump in.
Was I?
You look like you were, maybe not.
No, I think I just think it's an interesting topic. When I think about dimensions, like you discussed, one dimension is linear, 0 to infinity,
right,
or negative. 2 dimensions, 2 numbers to locate. 3 is 3, kind of the spatial, and then 4 dimensions is the time aspect of it. So, I don't know, maybe God is circular in a way. There's no beginning, there's no end.
And there's another book that's called Flatland. I don't know if you've ever read that, but that kind of goes into this extra dimensional stuff. And I think it might even be on YouTube. There's an actual movie that they made about this Flatland book. It's not a Christian book, but you definitely get really Christian concepts or God concepts from this book of extra dimensional or higher dimensional beings coming down to lower dimensionals areas, and it's kind of really cool.
If you want a real concrete way to understand what, or at least an idea of what the Bible is talking about when God says that his ways are higher than our ways, he is not like us, his ways are higher than our ways. Flatland is great because it starts the same way that you were talking about, from a point to a line to a 2D space. And how would something that is 2D even comprehend something that is 3D?
Well, describe angels.
So yeah, let me get into that, because I had a conversation with a listener. We were talking about this idea, and he's like, how would something that's 2-dimensional even be able to understand a third dimension? You would not have the context.
It's literally impossible.
It's impossible to understand. And how could someone in a 3-dimensional world understand a 4-dimensional world? And then the application, let me read a quick passage. In Ephesians chapter 3, beginning with verse 14, Paul says, "For this reason I bow my knee to the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, from whom the whole family in heaven and earth is named, that he would grant you, according to the riches of his glory, to be strengthened with might through his Spirit in the inner man, that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, that you, being rooted and grounded in love, may be able to comprehend with all the saints what is the width and length and depth and height, to know the love of Christ, which passes knowledge, that you may be filled with the fullness of God." Now what's interesting is, Paul's exhorting us to understand the fullness of God, the love that God has for us. But how does he describe this? He describes it. He says that you may be able to comprehend, but that you may be able to comprehend, the irony, what is incomprehensible, because he describes God's love for us, that you may comprehend what is the width, 1, and length, 2, and depth, 3, and height, 4. He's describing a 4-dimensional idea of God's love. To know the love of Christ, which passes knowledge. Of course it passes knowledge. Why? Because I only exist in a 3-dimensional realm. And yet Paul, in describing the love of God, is it's so much deeper and broader and more impactful than you can ever really fully comprehend, because it's 4-dimensional. It's in a totally different realm and context than what you could even, and that's kind of the fun irony, is Paul's like, I want you to comprehend and know what is fundamentally unknowable.
Well, I think you
right?
see,
that makes sense?
I think you see descriptions of that with different appearances of
Ezekiel's wheels.
Ezekiel's
Oh, yeah.
wheels, or description of the angels in heaven and like Revelation and stuff. Like one of my favorite memes going around is like Gabriel or somebody coming to meet with somebody, and he's like, "Do not be afraid," and it's just like somebody saying. And it's just that multi-dimensional kind of thing.
With all
He's
the eyes and the
yeah, and
rings
he's
and
like,
the wings.
"Sir, this is the most terrifying moment I've ever had in my life."
Well, is that
Kinda-
what you're describing? You know, back then they didn't have all the technology. You know, and we're still very early on. But I mean,
well, I mean,
is
when
it
you're
actually-
just when you, but there's
No,
I
let
think
him
there's
finish his,
different.
Justin, let him finish
okay.
his thought.
are those actually? I mean, obviously didn't have multiple eyes or whatever.
Right.
You know, how would someone with a very limited comprehension, even less than we have now, not
Well, I
be
think
able
that's
to explain those
I think
things?
that's the thing. Like Ezekiel's wheels. I mean, obviously that kind of sounds like a UFO, and a lot of UFO people tend to reference that thing. But like angels themselves, it tends to be a physical characteristic of an actual being rather than a vehicle. Do you see what I'm saying? So for me to describe, there's nothing that I can describe something except for how I know how to describe it. And, or even the image of Jesus with like a sword coming out of his mouth and stuff like that. It could be a physical description. It could be just metaphor or something like that. But like the description of the angels seem to be a physical description of what they're seeing to the best of his ability of how to describe
what
it.
exists in this
And-
current world.
And Isaac, you're right. You touch on something that is important. And I think that's one of the what so many people get confused about, and what makes the Book of Revelation for some people very complicated, and even daunting and challenging. And it's so John is looking into the future, and he's trying to describe a future, a still yet future world from even us. He's trying to describe future technology using a first century context that lacks any understanding of certain technologies. And that's a breakdown, which is why I think it's important when you're reading through the Book of Revelation to keep that in mind, which is why John uses a lot of descriptive terms, like this is like this is as that. He's not saying it is this. He's saying I'm just doing my best to describe what I'm seeing so that you guys can try to paint the picture of what it is. And now today we can look back and be like, well, I mean, yes, there could be asteroids falling from the sky. That's true. Or it could be Scud missiles. Because from John's vantage point, they would look the same. But we understand that two things can fall from the sky.
right.
Yeah, rocks can, but we can also send missiles. And there's a lot of that type of thing.
Or like the angels, one
But-
foot in the sea, one foot on.
Right, but I think
Right, yeah.
there's a distinct difference between describing things that are possibly like future technology and describing angelic beings.
Right, no,
or spiritual beings that are on another dimension. And that's kind of why I mentioned Flatland, is because it goes into pretty good depth of this three-dimensional. The whole story revolves around a three-dimensional being that's there to prophesy for like a higher dimensional being down into a two-dimensional world. And so it's the interactions of a three-dimensional being in a two-dimensional world, and like you get these descriptions from these two-dimensional beings of this three-dimensional, and they can't see the three dimensions, so they're only able to see the two dimensions, but it's off kind of thing. Do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So I think that's when we start getting into these extra dimensional beings rather than extraterrestrial, which I agree
Well,
with
and-
Zach. And it's
And then let me throw in this wrinkle to it. Speaking of the angelic host, per se, what to me I think is not discussed enough is the manifestation of an angelic being in the halls of heaven is a much it is a radically different thing that then occurs on earth. In fact, like, you don't have angels showing up on earth in their heavenly manifestation at all. Not that I'm aware of. And instead, the majority of the time, angels on earth, when they appear on earth, take on a bodily form as a human being, typically as male. Gabriel's a great example of this, whether it be in Daniel or whether it be in the Christmas narrative. You get back to the interactions that Jesus has in the Old Testament, the Christophanies. It's, he's presented as an awesome being, but often very much in a human form. Jacob wrestled with the angel of the Lord, but the indications are he wrestled with a man. Abraham's interactions before the Sodom and Gomorrah scene, he eats with Jesus and two other angels. They eat. Melchizedek, physical manifestation. You have within the angelic host. Seems like in their earthly, Paul would say in Hebrews, be careful entertaining a stranger, because you might be entertaining an angel without knowing it. So I do think, again, going back to the idea that when we're trying to wrap our brain around heaven, the other realms, we are at a stark disadvantage within our capacity to fully grasp it, describe it, understand it. I think there's enough the Scripture gives us that we can relate to it, we can be excited and anticipate it, but at the same time, there's still a mystery behind it all, which is why the Bible is very clear. Like, His ways are higher than ours. I'm okay with that. Like, if there was an eternity that I could wrap my brain around, I don't know how much of an eternity it would be.
Yeah.
So
there's a component to that that's like my pea brain. I'm glad I can't fully grasp it.
I have a question, and it kind of goes into this. And it's probably speculation at this point because can't really go back. Before the fall, Adam and Eve walked with God in the garden.
Yes.
Was God in physical form there, or were we created to live in both worlds or all the dimensions at that point? And after the fall, something separated that.
That's a great question. I don't see any evidence that Adam and Eve were given access to anything other than the physical realm. Like, there just doesn't seem to be evidence of that. Now, is there clearly evidence that the blending of the eternal realm and our physical realm, or the spiritual realm, and yes, not just in the fact that they walked with God, but I think it's Ezekiel, Lucifer was given dominion over Eden. It's very likely that Adam and Eve had specific interactions with Lucifer even before the fall, before that the great sin took place. Which is why I've always believed that the serpent, that's figurative language, that it's actually Lucifer, not an actual snake, which is why the curse is the way that it is. It's why the familiarity. Again, if a snake showed up with slithering tongue, said to Eve, you eat this fruit, you'll be just like God. Like, well, how do you know? You're just a snake. But if it's Lucifer, who's the worship leader of heaven, who's one of the greatest angelic beings, it's like, hey, you eat of this, God's holding out on you. Well, there's credibility to it. So, to your question, there absolutely seems to be evidence that the spiritual realm and the physical realm, from the perspective of Adam and Eve, that there was no separation to that. That was kind of a seamless thing, co-reality. For them, I don't know how much changes even after the fall, because the angels placed at the entrance of Eden, there's a flaming sword. We're just not giving them a whole lot of information to that. So, and then if you extrapolate things out to Genesis 6, the sons of God went into the daughters of men. We've talked about that before on the show, but the idea of there being this cross intersection of angelic beings having sexual relations with human women, producing a hybrid being that we would call the Nephilim.
I had a friend who said he was one of those.
That said he was a Nephilim.
Not a demigod, but yeah.
Right. That's a story for sure.
He was wrong.
Yeah. Leave it to Oregon, right?
He was in the Navy. But
Oh, that makes
he
sense.
definitely belonged in Oregon, that's for sure.
But my point is like if you extrapolate out that particular scenario, I don't think that I'm not sure that division is blurred too much. Could it be that the actual that separation between the spiritual realm and the physical realm is somehow a consequence of the flood? That something within the flood itself brought down, because we don't see much of that afterwards.
Can I throw out a second scenario?
But I mean, you again, I'm spitballing an idea here.
Before you
Yeah.
do, real quick. So there are people who die, and then obviously everyone dies, but then they go to, some people experience going to heaven or hell. I don't know if you guys have ever watched those videos. I haven't, but anyway, I see the tagline.
All right.
And I'm just thinking, they say, apparently, that they kind of pierced that veil.
Are you talking about people that die but don't die but come back?
They come back, and then they share their story.
Near death experience.
Well, supposedly they actually do flatline. Medically, they're dead, but you know what I mean?
Right.
And then they experience this. They experience hell, or maybe they experience heaven or whatever, and then they come back and they share their story on it.
One of the really famous ones is like 2 minutes in heaven or something.
90 seconds in heaven.
Yeah, maybe that's what it's called.
2 minutes in heaven is Flight of the Conchords reference to business time.
Oh my gosh, it totally is.
Yeah, that's a totally different topic. You know what's better than 1 minute in heaven? 2 minutes in heaven.
Save it for the the new what you're starting in January.
Hey, I go inside with this baby. 2 minutes in heaven.
Things are gonna happen.
Oh, we're
Things
online.
are
We're
gonna
on the
be
internet.
happening.
We're still live on the internet.
Things are gonna be happening.
That's for Outlaw After Dark.
after dark.
Yeah.
Right.
The saloon.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
So I mean the near death experience. I mean those things. I'm very suspect of all of that, mainly because the only person I know that I can trust is Jesus. Right. Jesus died, came back,
And you.
told us about it. I didn't actually die.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how to define what I went through. The only other person the scripture affirms, the Holy Spirit, is that Paul.
Lazarus.
Well, Paul says that, and probably in Iconium when he's stoned to death, he says that he experienced the third heaven, which is heaven. Mm-hmm. But then he says, the things that I saw, I can't write about because I don't have the words to even describe, to do service to what I experienced, what I saw. And if Paul, who by the way was very wordy, Paul had a way with words. Like he was not lack of the ability to describe what he wanted to describe.
Gift of gab.
If he was like, yeah, I ain't got nothing, then I'm a bit more suspect when it's like, the 8-year-old kid comes back and writes a best-selling book that's like, let me tell you all about what I saw in heaven, because I don't think he has the words to describe it and probably shouldn't attempt it. Doesn't mean that he didn't have some experience or not. To me, Lazarus had some experience because he was dead for 4 days.
Well, you were talking about the guy who had mud in his eyes.
Yeah.
He saw the giants. So if we think that he was able to see into another dimension, maybe he just still had mud in his eyes.
Right. Maybe it was just mud.
Maybe it was just the mud in his
It was
Right.
just the mud in his eyes.
I got a second scenario that kind of goes with something we talked about before.
Yeah, jump in.
So,
Pause. Do we have anything online? Any comments, feedback, other than ranting on the McRib?
We have a couple.
Yeah, let's throw those in, and then Justin, jump in there.
So back from when we were talking about eternity and what was the other one? Eternity and infiniteness. What's the word I'm looking for?
That's fine.
Infinity. Alexis asked, so when it comes to the concept of a day in creation, is that God just labeling a physical day? So is there like a construct of time there? I think he was asking, are those literal days like at the very beginning?
Yeah, no. I think so. Even the Bible affirms that a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day to God. That from God's perspective, again, time operates differently.
But even is that like accurate?
Well,
They're
Well,
just
so-
like, they're just kind of like
the word used in Hebrew in the book
It's
of Genesis
yom.
is yom.
It's yom.
Which generally 99% of the time that's used in the Bible, it means a literal 24-hour day.
Well, and that's where like, okay, so we do understand that God exists outside of this. A day is like 1,000 years, 1,000 years like a day. It's a totally different construct. Well, then how does God then relay and describe creation? Not only does he use a term for day that largely implies a 24-hour period, but then every day gets defined by God as evening and morning were the first day. So there doesn't seem to be much room for anything other than a literal reading of
Yeah.
the Genesis account.
And-
Now there are people that, like, there's the long day theory that's out there. There are people that try to say, well, each day maybe represents kind of an eon, and they try to write evolution, the development of the evolutionary theory within the construct of the creation narrative. And I understand why they do that. They're trying to reconcile science with the Bible, because, the experts seem to be very anti-young Earth and anti-creationism. I think that's always a danger, to try to warp scripture to fit a scientific narrative, because science is constantly evolving and changing. And we see that all the time. I let the Bible dictate my science. I don't try to make my Bible fit science. I believe in a young Earth. It's interesting with the moon landing, with the Apollo. They had gigantic feet on the landing craft, because the assumption was that the Earth was 4 billion years old. The moon was 4 billion years old. And they were like, well, there would be a certain accumulation of space dust. We're worried that you would sink right into it. That's why the lunar module had big feet. They were worried about that. That was the assumption based
the moon
upon.
landings didn't happen.
Well, right. Well, they get there, they land.
You're
and,
assuming there's a moon, Justin.
right. Well, you get there, they land, and what? We only find like an inch of space dust. It fits more of a young Earth theory than an old Earth model. So the days 1,000. I don't think. I think the best reading of the Genesis account is a literal day.
I think the biggest indicator of the literal day is, what did God create first? Heavens and or he created light, right? When did he create the sun and moon?
Second day, I think, right?
Right. Well, and
Did he?
then it gets complicated, because God created the heavens and the earth. The
created
earth
the
was
plant-
without form. The earth was
He
void.
created the plants and trees before he created the sun and moon.
Yeah, so there was day and there was evening. The light must have been from him and not from the
Correct,
sun. obviously.
correct. But-
And I don't know if you've ever seen a plant go without sunlight for a while.
In my house, definitely.
And how
Right.
long do those plants last?
You can also make that
Not very
argument
long.
you can also make that argument really easily with when plants are created in conjunction with land animals. Because if it's an eon, it's a day before they're pollinators. It's a day before they're pollinators. If it's an eon, you don't have animals to pollinate the plants.
They still don't survive without sunlight.
Well,
though.
I just
Right.
don't think that you can apply logic to one part of it like you are doing with the light and the plants. It's like, okay,
Well,
that's
the-
one thing, but I mean,
A lot of it comes together to indicate that it's a literal 24-hour days.
yes, but it doesn't make sense that there's light with no sun. So
It
you're
doesn't.
on- You know what I mean?
Unless God is the light.
God is light.
Exactly.
Right,
So
exactly.
technically,
But then
it
the
could
plants
be
could survive.
it could be a billion years, and God's light is just providing for the plants. I'm just saying it's possible.
I just haven't seen any sign. I haven't seen God's light on its own.
It's completely
supporting-
listen. It's completely possible.
It is.
Because I mean, in the beginning, God. Like if you just start there, everything else.
Everything
Like
else
if you
after that's
accept
easy.
that premise that in the beginning there was God, and that God wanted to create, like he can do it however he wants to. Like he's
Right.
the infinite being, that's all powerful, and in his infinite wisdom does it. We just then have to look at the language of the Genesis narrative, and say, well, what is God articulating in regards to the process by which this happened?
Right.
You know, the more complicated thing is that God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void. Darkness hovered over the face of the deep. Then God said, let there be light. Well, okay. What is that? Because there's already stuff. And then there's a creation, which leads into the gap theory, and we get a whole big thing of like, is it creation being described? Is it recreation?
Right.
Was there already a creation that happened? There's a lot of this complicated stuff that goes in. That's a whole nother topic for another day, and we don't have time for that at all.
Not even close.
Not even close. I think to try to put a bow on the conversation based upon the topic that was originally introduced by Robert, it's that we got to always keep in mind when dealing with God, when trying to understand God, trying to wrap our brain around certain things about God, is that we're always doing it, A, from the premise of the Word and what God has revealed about himself. That's our starting point. Because we have no revelation other than that. But then we're trying to understand that through the prism of a very limited perspective, and that being humans. The caveat is John 1:1. That in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. And that's the logos, literally the logic. Which means that when we are trying to understand things, God can defy our logic. He can't contradict it. And I think that's the important medium to the conversation. There are things that I can't understand, but I can affirm that while I can't understand them, they're not illogical. Like the whole concept of the triune nature of God. Three beings, one being, one essence, and three persons. That seems to violate the law of non-contradiction. Unless you affirm and admit that the essence is different than the persons, but they're existing in one. Okay, I don't understand that, but that doesn't violate the law of non-contradiction. I just can't understand that. Yes, 1 + 1 + 1 equals 3, not 1. But 1 × 1 × 1 can equal 1.
It just seems like maybe the triune is the dimensional form of
For
God.
sure. But my point, and you're absolutely right. But my point is like, God's not gonna defy the logic by which by which thinking is necessary. And I think that that's a big thing that people get wrapped up into. It's like, well, I don't understand this, I don't understand that. Well, okay, you shouldn't. There are things you're not going to understand. Why? Because you're not all-knowing. You're not God. If you could understand everything about everything, you would be by definition God. Which is why I like when someone's like, I'm an atheist. Okay, in the Greek, that means you're an atheist. No God. It's an absolute statement. So you're saying you absolutely know everything about everything at all times in every place to say definitively no God. Yeah. You do know that means you're God. Like you're claiming to have infinite knowledge about infinite things to make an absolute statement that there is absolutely no God. Like you're by definition just defined yourself as God. So what are you? Well, okay. I'm an agnostic. Okay. No, Gnostic, knowledge? Like we translate that in English as ignorant. So you just go from like being an atheist to just being ignorant. Like, I don't know. And it's okay to say, I don't know. That's okay. But God is knowable. There is a lot that God has revealed about himself to be known. Mm-hmm. He is the Word. And God decided to reveal himself in the most basic way that humans interact and are known. You know what I'm thinking through the mechanism of words. Like what's in my brain, I'm able to translate into sounds that exit my mouth that your ears hear and then interpret them into a meaning. It's an amazing thing. Language, words. And the fact that God's like, I want to communicate with these things that I've made. And like, I'm going to articulate myself in the most basic way that they articulate themselves, using word. using the word. They're not going to understand everything. They can't. They're not me. But I'll make sure that what they do, the amount that they do know, isn't going to defy the basics of just how you have to think. Again, if we abandon absolutes, there's no fundamentals for thought, which is why Jesus says, I'm the way, the truth. There's truth. There's things that are knowable and are knowably true regardless of one's perspective, viewpoint, whatnot. They're true. And there's thoughts of, things that are contradictory. The law of things can't be the same thing at the same point in time they contradict.
I think that's why Satan, the first thing Satan did was attack
the word, God's word, what God said. And he's done that ever since. I mean, that is again, it all gets attacked on this plane of revelation. Which again, hey, if we want to wrap it up, like if you want to know God is knowable. He's made it as easy as possible, and it's his word. You get into his word, and you'll get to know God. You will learn about God, and not just learn about him, but you'll get to know him. There's something that happens. There's an experience that takes place. There's an interaction that occurs in a spiritual plane through the word, which is why at Calvary 316 we teach the word. And I don't know if you guys notice it, most of my prayers before we start our Bible studies, Lord, this is not just about getting knowledge, but it's about getting to know you. It's about transformation. We can gain nuggets of truth, but we don't just come to the word for that. We come to know a person, and that's Jesus. So, any final thoughts, you guys? Anybody? Resident audience member, we'll start with you. Got any final thoughts, Robert? Nope, none at all. Spice Daddy.
Merry Christmas.
Punch a heretic like Santa Claus.
Punch a heretic like Santa Claus. Enjoy the fact that the God of the universe decided to become like you, so you could know him better.
That's cool. Yeah.
Man, what a better way to like describe stuff in metaphor than just to become that thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Oregon Dexter.
Good conversation. Definitely a lot of questions that I still have.
For sure. Well, this conversation continues every Wednesday night at 8 p.m., which is probably an apt opportunity to just let everyone know. Next week's going to be a different type of week. My son Theodore has a big school Christmas play Tuesday night and Wednesday night. And then my son Quincy has a basketball game Thursday night. I know Creighton has a Christmas party Wednesday night. So there's a lot going on. So we're going to do something crazy. Instead of just taking the week off, we're going to do the first ever Monday night.
Monday.
And I'm not surprised by the Monday. Christmas. You are going to a Christmas party?
I am going to a work Christmas party. It is not
it's a Christmas
It's still a
party.
Christmas party.
It's one of those like it's one of those like from 1 to 5 is meetings, and then from 5 to I don't know when is.
Could
Christmas
you
party.
show up dressed as Scrooge?
No, I have to be business casual, like I'm going to the office.
Okay, Santa Claus.
Scrooge was
Santa
an
Claus.
accountant.
I think Scrooge was an accountant.
Yep.
He worked at a bank, just
pretty
like
sure
you.
Scrooge
You
was
need
an
a top
embezzler.
hat and a monocle.
A monocle.
Agreed.
Top hat and a monocle. And
All right,
tail
I'm gonna
feathers.
go. It's 9:09. Let's get to the. I'm gonna give my final thoughts to get us out of here.
Your final thoughts, and then anything that might have jumped on the interwebs.
Cool. If you don't have time to read the whole space trilogy, just read Paralandra. It extends the garden idea to a whole book-length metaphor. It's fantastic.
Is that the second book?
It's the second book.
Second book.
And you can read them individually if you don't have time for the whole trilogy. Paralandra it's so good. That's all I got.
That's all you got. Anything online?
Nope.
All right. Well, if you want to drop a topic, leave a comment. You can do so at popecreighton@gmail.com. I don't have the email right in front of me, but we did get an email this week from a Chris M. that said that he's not on social media. This was the first podcast he had ever listened to, and he found that This was the most entertaining Bible study that he's ever been exposed to, and thoroughly enjoyed it. Awesome. And I thought it was super cool. I dropped that a couple days ago in the Gmail. So we'd love to hear from you again. PopeCreighton@gmail.com. You've been watching the Outlaw Radio Show. If you're watching, check out the podcast released on Thursdays, Apple, Google, Spotify. If you're listening, hang out with us. We live stream what you're listening to. Next week's going to be on Monday night, 8 p.m. Monday night, 8 p.m. Please join us. Once again, my name is Zach Adams. God bless and Merry Christmas.